Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I know this has been pretty much like all over the news for the last few weeks at this point, and there's been a lot of worry about what's going to happen. People are talking about this could potentially lead to World War III. Is the United States getting involved in another war? What exactly is going to happen? And I just kind of want to provide some updates based on some of the news stories that have been happening during this entire thing, because a lot of major moments and events have happened that could immediately lead to a Russian invasion. There's still a lot of talk about this potential, and overall I just kind of want to talk about it because it is a pretty major global moment, right? And it's something worth talking about, right? We could actually see war in Europe very soon. Within the few days ahead of us, we could see a full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine and straight-up conflict between these two countries. Of course, a lot of the American media and a lot of Americans and people in the West are worried, right? What does this involve us? Why are we involved? What's going on? Are we going to be at war? What's happening? And it's definitely an interesting scenario here. So first, I kind of want to go over all of the new breaking information that's kind of going on, talk about these things, kind of compare it to some of the other information that we know, and just provide like an overall update here. So first and foremost, the United States has been accusing Russia of planning an invasion of Ukraine within the coming days. I believe the official window for a Russian offensive started on Tuesday, according to the United States, meaning that at pretty much any moment, Russia is expected to invade by the United States and NATO. Ukraine, though, however, seems to be pretty, I wouldn't say non-worried, but they seem to think that the risk of an imminent assault, at least, is somewhat low. In fact, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is actually planning to leave the country of Ukraine this weekend so he can attend the Munich security conference. And the reason that this is important is, number one, he would be meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris from the United States, but also number two, because the official and public leader and face of Ukraine would be formally out of the country during a window period in which they could be invaded by the massive Russian military right across the border that they share. And global leaders are pretty worried about the potential of having this meeting during such a high risk for conflict moment. Also, at the same time, the United States has been accusing Russia of planning what they call false flag operations in order to give justification for an immediate invasion and assault on Ukraine. Now, if you don't understand, a false flag operation is essentially when a country attacks itself or fakes some sort of, like, I guess, aggressive act against themselves so that they can pin it on the opponent and basically give themselves like a global justification for going to war. Now, a couple notable examples of this happening are actually American examples. The beginning of the Vietnam War is widely looked at as the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which actually, according to leaked government documents decades later, was a completely falsified event that the United States committed on itself and its Navy ships, basically pretending that Vietnam was attacking them in order to justify them getting involved in the Vietnam War. Leaked intelligence documents also show that the United States during the Cold War was actually planning a false flag operation called Operation Northwoods, which was actually organized by the US Department of Defense and would have basically faulted Cuba and justified an invasion of the country for being communist, obviously trying to topple Fidel Castro's regime and get back at the Soviet Union. The government was going to literally shoot down and destroy passenger aircrafts with hundreds of Americans on board and commit other acts to kill American citizens and then blame it on Fidel Castro to give them a justifiable reason to basically turn the Cold War into World War III. Of course, this never actually went through, and it's just now basically leaked information, but these kinds of things have happened before, and the United States has been involved in these types of plans before, which is why a lot of people are accusing the United States of actually lying about this Russian false flag operation, basically trying to give the United States and their NATO allies a justifiable reason to come to the military defense of Ukraine. But the reason that I don't believe the United States faked these false flag operations is because, well, we potentially just saw one unfold in the last few hours, and that's one of the major things I want to talk about here today. So just today, Russian state media actually reported that a car bomb in Donetsk, Ukraine, which is actually an area where pro-Russian rebels were evacuating people to Russia over the last few days, ended up exploding, which was basically accused against Russia of being a false flag plan in order to accuse like Ukrainian defenders of trying to assassinate pro-Russia people in order to basically justify an invasion of some sort. While this is happening, US President Joe Biden is actually expected to meet with NATO leaders today and speak on this situation publicly, giving the world an update on the West and NATO's plan basically to address the situations at hand. There's also been a lot of rumors that there's been artillery explosions in eastern Ukraine. The United States is once again basically accusing this of being a Russian false flag operation, basically being used to plan a reason to invade. But Russia has been showing a lot of aggression in this entire situation. Obviously, Vladimir Putin and Russian officials have been very public about the potential for things such as nuclear war if NATO were to come to Ukraine's defense in an armed conflict. And even when it comes down to taking military action on Ukraine, it has not been ruled out. In fact, it's been almost kind of hinted at multiple times by Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia, and his allies in the military. On top of all of this, Russia is actually set to schedule and run several practice drills, including their intercontinental ballistic and cruise missiles just tomorrow, which is obviously adding fear that an invasion is imminent. Reports actually suggest that Russia has massed up nearly 150,000 soldiers and a load of military equipment on the borders of Ukraine from multiple different directions, which obviously is only adding more and more fuel to the fire. A few days ago, Russia claimed that they would be pulling back their military forces and that there would be no invasion of Ukraine, that they were basically going to back up. The United States immediately started to basically go against this and said that this was basically a lie. No plans for invasion were off the table, and they still believed that an invasion would be imminent. Obviously, Russia's statements kind of conflict here. They say they're going to pull back, they're not going to be aggressive, and then they're set to run these intercontinental ballistic and cruise missile tests. They're adding, 150,000 troops to the border. But the potential for war has not been limited to the physical man-powered front. In fact, actually, the White House has now accused Russia of several massive cyber attacks that targeted Ukraine over the last few days. The attacks were supposedly of, quote, limited impact, but other reports have suggested that they were pretty important, and these cyber attacks actually targeted Ukrainian defense networks and also were targeting things such as Ukrainian bank networks. Obviously, cyber warfare has kind of ramped up in recent years as technology has progressed over the last few decades, and committing cyber attacks that are able to basically damage a country's ability to respond or actually be able to function, they've become a lot more common. In fact, the United States, one of the most notable cyber attacks of all time is when the United States actually shut down a nuclear power reactor or a nuclear plant of some sort in Iran, where they were basically accused of trying to enrich uranium to create nuclear weapons. The Americans basically overloaded the power grid of it and made the thing spin so much that it exploded on itself. So these types of cyber attacks have become more and more important to warfare and a lot more common as well over time. And of course, with everything going on, people are more or less worrying here in the United States. Are we really about to go to war with Russia? Is World War III on the brink? What's about to happen? Well, the United States has repeatedly affirmed that there will not be US soldiers in Ukraine to help any sort of evacuation efforts, and that the US military is staying uninvolved. In fact, it appears that the only time and place in which the US military is going to get involved in this whole thing is if Russia attacks a NATO member first. Now, of course, Ukraine is not currently in NATO. They have expressed a lot of interest in joining NATO because obviously it's one of the biggest military alliances on the planet. You basically are getting protection from the United States, and also it would be a way to potentially deter any sort of Russian invasion, even though it looks that if that were to happen tomorrow, they probably would invade immediately. Obviously, with NATO, if a member state of this is attacked, all the other member states come to their defense, which would mean if a NATO country in Europe were to be attacked, the United States would immediately be at war with whoever attacked them. This would be the beginning of World War III because, of course, it would also involve other countries, including pretty much most of the major European countries, which all have pretty high-powered militaries themselves, against Russia and whatever allies that they would be able to build up. I believe Belarus has actually even publicly declared that they are an ally of Russia in this situation, and they've even said that if push comes to shove, they are willing to host Russian nuclear weapons basically in order to deter Europe. Now, as Americans, I do not think that we're going to be going to war because America actually has a completely different trick up its sleeve that most people don't really think about, I think, and that's sanctions. In fact, President Biden has publicly warned several times that if Russia is to invade Ukraine, the United States and Europe will be imposing a massive amount of sanctions that could completely cripple, if not decimate, the Russian economy. Most people don't seem to realize this, but the United States, even though, we're in so much debt and whatnot, we are the dominant economic force of the planet. Most of the world actually backs their currencies on or runs through the US dollar in some way. And America, along with its allies, we actually process a lot of the massive bank transactions and whatnot globally. In fact, the United States and its allies basically are in control of the global bank messaging systems that actually are used to basically transfer most money internationally. Now, most countries use this system, this network of messaging, in order to transfer their currencies and to do bank transactions with other nations around the world. And if the United States and its allies chose to, they could cut Russia off of this network entirely, which would make it impossible for the Russian economy basically to communicate with the rest of the global economy in a lot of ways. Now, as of right now, the United States has determined that they will not be cutting Russia off of this, but I mean, if things changed, then this would be huge. Not only are the sanctions that the West are planning to put on Russia if there is an invasion absolutely massive and could really harshly damage the Russian economy, a move like this could actually cripple and decimate the Russian economy entirely. We're talking about with a mix of sanctions and these different things, and also by cutting off the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline that supplies half of Germany's natural gas from Russia, Russia's economy could be smacked up to like 40 to 60% by all these different things. And that kind of rapid global economic power against this kind of country would destroy an economy. And obviously, you can't really have a war if your economy's destroyed. I mean, people at home would not be happy that Russia's basically invading another country, risking World War III breaking out, but also at the same time, they're willing to completely cripple the entire economic system that their country runs on and all these people live off of. The bottom line of it is also that Ukraine has a very strong military. Most people don't know this, but Ukraine actually has a military very capable of defending the country. Of course, Russia's military is a lot larger, probably a lot better equipped, but Ukraine is not some pushover country. It's not like you're invading someone's backyard here. In fact, Al Jazeera has made this graph I want to show you guys, or this diagram I want to show you guys, that explains everything by the numbers here. So, as you can see, Russia basically wins in all of these different categories, including active personnel, artillery, tanks, vehicles, attack helicopters, military spending. But it's not like Ukraine is just some country with nothing, right? I mean, they can easily amass over 1 million ground units, and they have enough of these vehicles and enough military equipment that they could definitely launch a sustained effort to defend their country from Russia. Also, with the support of the West, I think that Ukraine would be able to hold this for a while. I mean, you know, Russia probably would win in the end, but it's not like Ukraine would go down in a day, hopefully. Ukraine is a very strong country, okay? Ukraine is a country of people who are very proud of where they live. They're very proud of being Ukrainians, and they do not want to be occupied by Russia. In fact, Russia invaded Crimea, which was part of Ukraine back in 2014, and they don't want to see their whole country go down like this. So I wanted to provide a little bit of a news update on the entire situation and keep you guys in the loop on what's going on, as this is a massive global situation. Thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitch and Facebook at @SubToOptimus. Over on Facebook, I do exclusive daily content just like this, just like I do here on YouTube. Also, make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. I'm about to release a bunch of new merchandise over there. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about the Ukraine and Russia conflict and signing out.